I am running for Congress.
What is this, a joke?
What's the con, T? Washington, D.C. That's where the money is. Listen, I have been doing some research. I've been to the library. Listen, before you live, congressmen, when they get elected, they get $130,000 a year. That's their base salary. Do things like buy 10,000 copies of your autobiography, which, by the way, is not a crime unless you make people read it.
Damn it! Sir, you are out of order.
Hey. To hell with order. The truth is gonna come out here today.
The movie begins with a party at Zeke Bridges' house. Many powerful politicians and business owners are there, including Olaf Anderson and an important congressman, Jeff Johnson. During the party, a servant gives Zeke a letter, and he quietly leaves the party. A waiter secretly follows him. Zeke goes into a private room where a Latina woman shows up. Zeke had previously spoken with her on a phone sex line, and now she has come to meet him. Suddenly, the waiter enters and reveals that he is actually an undercover agent.
Don't worry about a thing, I'll handle this.
He warns Zeke that the woman is part of a scam. She and her friends want to blackmail him using his phone call recordings. Scared, Zeke begs the agent to protect him. He even gives him $10,000 and his expensive Rolex watch in exchange for the tape. But soon, Zeke realizes the truth. The waiter is not an agent at all. He is also part of the same fraud gang. While trying to escape, the fake agent overhears Olaf and Jeff talking upstairs. Jeff says he wants to leave politics.
If I retire this year, I get to keep $1.3 billion that's left in my campaign.
The fake agent calls him corrupt and runs away. Later, we see Jeff Johnson with his secretary, Kimberly. During an intimate moment with her, Jeff suddenly dies.
Oh my God.
After that, we see the con man at home. His real name is Thomas Jefferson Johnson, and the Latina woman who pretended earlier is actually his cousin, Loretta. Together, they run scams by using phone sex ads on TV to trick people and make money. But his grandmother strongly dislikes this dishonest lifestyle. The news comes on TV that Congressman Jeff Johnson has died, and his wife, Mrs. Johnson, is not taking up his seat. Hearing this, Thomas's grandmother comments that people often vote just for a familiar name.
People would have to be some kind of boobs just to vote for somebody because their name was Johnson.
She even remembers a time when a dead man won an election only because his name matched a well-known politician. This gives Thomas an idea. Since he had already overheard how rich politicians can get, he decided to use the same trick. After researching carefully, he tells his cousin about his plan to modify his middle name so that he can run for election as Jeff Johnson. That way, people will confuse him with the real congressman and vote for him.
Congressman name was Jeff Johnson. My middle name is Jefferson, last name is Johnson. Cut off the Thomas, shorten to Jefferson.
To build support, he meets a political player known as Silver Fox and manages to convince her to help him. Then, pretending to be a college professor, he visits Jeff Johnson's widow. He asks her for her late husband's notes and campaign pamphlets, claiming it's for research. But you know the reality. He wants to use them for his own election campaign.
Husband deserves an archive where students can study his legacy.
Posing as Jeff Johnson, Thomas begins his political campaign. For his campaign, Thomas never gives any interviews. Instead, he simply drives around in a van covered with posters saying Jeff Johnson and asks people to vote for him. Amazingly, this simple trick works, and he wins the election. After his victory speech, Thomas travels to Washington, D.C. When he arrives at the White House and the congressional offices, he is surprised to see how luxurious everything is. While taking the elevator to his office, a woman already inside stops him, saying the lift is only for congressmen. Thomas tells her that he is Congressman Jeff Johnson. She replies that Jeff Johnson is dead. He explains that his full name is Thomas Jefferson Johnson. After checking his ID, she finally allows him in. Thomas asks for his office, number 518, but the woman tells him that the elevator only goes to the 4th floor, so he'll have to take the stairs the rest of the way. When he finally reaches his office, he's shocked. It looks more like a junk room than a proper office. There, his assistant, Arthur Reinhardt, is waiting. He explains that offices are given out through a lottery system, and since Thomas missed it, he was stuck with whatever was left.
You missed the freshman lottery for offices, so you got the worst office in Congress.
Later, Thomas gets ready for the party, joined by his cousin Loretta. At the gathering, they greet and meet many people. Out them, 2 congressmen approaches Thomas and taunts him.
The rest of us are out there on the campaign trail, raising money,
kissing ass, making speeches, dragging our butts from place to place, and he slides in on pure name recognition.
Their words pinch him, and before Thomas hits them back, they take a smart turn.
Fucking brilliant.
Actually, that was a genius move, which saves them and everyone laughs. And Thomas realizes he has already started making a mark in politics. In the washroom, Thomas meets another congressman named Mike Hoyt. Mike told him how he won his election. He says he always talked about acid rain and soil erosion, and just by repeating these issues he managed to get votes. Later, at the party, Thomas continues meeting people. There, he meets Terry Corrigan, who gives a knowing look again, commenting on his election victory.
I knew you were a real dumbass.
I know how you managed to win. He even jokes that he bet money that even Olaf Anderson must have voted for Thomas. Thomas was confused and asked who Olaf Anderson was, to which Terry points toward the man giving a speech.
Client of mine.
Terry also tells Thomas about Dick Dodge, a powerful congressman who is about to contest election for Speaker of the House. He explains how extremely influential he is. At first, Thomas didn't understand how important this was, but as the conversation continues, he realizes Dodge isn't just a committee member, he's actually the chairman of the committee. That night, curious about Dodge, Thomas goes to Reinhardt's room while he's asleep and bangs on his door until he opens it. Now Thomas wants an answer to just one question.
What is the name of that committee Dick Dodge is chairman of?
Reinhardt thinks for a while and finally remembers it's the Power and Industry Committee, and now he wants to be part of this committee. Reinhardt tells Thomas that normally it takes about 12 years of seniority to join an important committee, if someone is successful. Thomas insists he doesn't want to wait years. He wants results in days. Surprised, Reinhardt explains that the only way this can happen is if the president personally grants the favor, or if a powerful special interest group pushes for it. Thomas immediately begins working on a plan. He disguises his voice and calls Dick Dodge's office, pretending to represent the NAACP under the name Joshua Benjamin. On the call, he asks whether Dodge's committee has any African American, Asian, Latino, gay, or transgender members. The answer is no. Meanwhile, Loretta also works behind the scenes and speaks with Kimberly, who is Dodge's assistant. Soon after, Thomas receives a phone call at his office that Dodge himself wants to meet with him. When they meet, Dodge considers Thomas for a committee position. Thomas cleverly makes it seem like several other committees, including Foreign Affairs and Armed Services, are already competing to recruit him. This makes Dodge feel that Thomas is in demand. In this way, Thomas's strategy works. Dodge decides to place him on the Power and Industry Committee, giving him direct access to one of the most powerful positions in Congress. At the committee party, Dick Dodge announces that Thomas is the newest member of the Power and Energy Committee. During the celebration, many people approach Thomas and hand him donations, either as funds or in the form of expensive gifts. In the middle of the party, a woman arrives. Thomas meets her, and she introduces herself as Celia Kirby, the legislative director of a public interest group called Pro Bono. She explains that her organization focuses on research and advocacy, and she wants to discuss priorities for the upcoming congressional session. She asks Thomas for his assistant's number, but Thomas flirts and insists on meeting her directly.
Why don't we just say now, we can go out to dinner, you can meet me at dinner.
After this, Thomas gives a short speech to mark his new position on the committee, but the speech turns out to be very weak and unimpressive. Later, Celia visits Thomas for a proper meeting with her research assistant, Ira Satcher. They bring up several important political and social issues, including child safety and concerns about imported toys. However, Thomas doesn't pay much attention to the discussion. Instead, he keeps focusing on Celia, making inappropriate comments and drifting off topic with strange remarks about toys.
Great. I hate imported toys. Hate them. I wish they didn't exist, especially those little baseball men with the springs and that do this. What is that?
Celia quickly realizes that Thomas has very little knowledge of actual political issues and is more interested in her than in the work. After this, Thomas has a meeting with Terry. Terry explains that he can bring Thomas more money, but first, Thomas must take a position on certain issues. For example, if Thomas supports higher sugar prices, Terry has money ready from sugar mills. If Thomas opposes it, he has money ready from candy factories. Thomas doesn't care much about the actual issues and randomly chooses sides just to move things along. Curious, Thomas asks Terry how the system really works if both sides are paying money. Terry explains that nothing ever really changes.
It doesn't. That's the genius of the system.
Lobbyists profit from both sides, while politicians keep the game going with no real progress. The next day, Celia meets Thomas again to discuss policy matters. Thomas still doesn't understand anything. He only manages to respond by repeating lines that Reinhardt secretly feeds him through a computer prompt. Later, Celia and Thomas go for a walk together. Thomas asks her why she doesn't just work in law, where she could make a lot of money. Celia becomes slightly embarrassed, but then explains that she wants her life to have real meaning. She wants to do meaningful work that makes a difference. The two continue talking and make plans to meet again for Sunday brunch. That Sunday, they met at a church where the priest giving the sermon turned out to be Celia's uncle, Eli Hawkins, who is also a congressman and a member of the ethics committee. One day, a woman comes to Thomas's office with her young son. She wants to meet the congressman, but Loretta and the rest of Thomas's team do not allow her. They tell her that Thomas is too busy and that she needs to make an appointment. As the argument continues, the boy's cap falls off, revealing that he has cancer. The mother explains that this is why she came. She wants help. At that moment, Thomas arrives. The woman tells him that her son's school is located under large power lines, and many children from that school have been diagnosed with cancer.
Other kids. They call it a cancer cluster.
Since Thomas was on the Power and Industry Committee, she pleaded with him to take action. The next day, Thomas visits the school himself. Moved by what he saw, he decided to take action. He holds a press conference, announcing that the matter will be taken seriously and a public inquiry will be launched. During the event, Dick Dodge also shows up. He pretends to support the inquiry and even poses for photographs with the sick children, turning the situation into a media opportunity. After the press conference, Dick calls Thomas to a private meeting and tells him that a public inquiry cannot happen the way he announced. Thomas is shocked because he had just promised it in front of the media.
But I'm not sympathetic to holding a public inquiry.
Soon, Zeke Bridges, Terry, and Olaf also arrive. Zeke is surprised to see Thomas. This is the same Zeke that Thomas once scammed at the beginning of the story. Together, the group explains why the inquiry should not move forward. One by one, they argue that it would hurt the local economy, damage the school system, and create political problems.
You'll kill the real estate market.
You'll kill the insurance company.
You'll kill the school district. You'll kill the local economy.
They manipulate Thomas into believing that the investigation would do more harm than good. Confused and pressured, Thomas eventually gives in and returns home, where he tells Celia that the public inquiry will not happen after all. Meanwhile, Dick, Terry, Olaf, and Zeke relax together in a spa, celebrating. At that moment, Eli Hawkins arrives. He angrily confronts them about their corruption and demands their support for amendments to strengthen the ethics committee. In the past, they had delayed him with empty promises, but this time Eli warns them directly. He threatens that if they don't back him, he will run against Dick for Speaker of the House and make sure Dick gets no votes. The others mocked him, joking that nobody wanted to listen to sermons. Eli stormed out, leaving them with his warning. The next morning, Dick sends Thomas to deal with Eli. Dick knows that Thomas is dating Celia, Eli's niece, and believes Thomas can use that connection to calm Eli down. Thomas goes to speak with Eli, and Loretta also joins him. On the way back from Eli's house, Thomas, Loretta, and Eli are traveling together when another car suddenly crashes into them. Loretta is driving, and the impact leaves both her and Eli unconscious. Thomas, however, is not badly hurt and manages to get out of the car. He immediately calls Dick to report the accident. Then Dick instructs him to take them to the hospital. He also assures him that he will handle the police and the media so the story does not spread. But once the call ends, Dick turns to Reinhardt and begins planning to twist the situation. The next morning, the news reports a very different story. On television, it is announced that Eli had been drinking and was with a woman from a phone sex line when the accident happened.
Hawkins reportedly had alcohol in his blood.
According to the report, Eli was the one driving, which destroys his reputation. Shocked by the lies, Thomas goes to the hospital to meet Eli, but Celia blocks him. She is furious and accuses Thomas of being selfish, of caring for no one, and of letting the public inquiry be shut down. She tells him that he does everything according to Dick Dodge's orders, and she no longer trusts him. Thomas realizes that Dick was behind the fake news about Eli, and now he decides to take revenge. He plans a big con against Dick. Loretta worries, reminding him that they're now too recognizable to easily pull off another scam.
We need a new roper. I mean, hey, look, everybody around here knows our faces.
Just then, one of their old friends, Homer, arrives to join and support their plan. Thomas begins by setting a trap. He pretends to Reinhardt that he recently received a phone call from someone at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, who wants to meet him about the canceled power line inquiry. Thomas drops the information in a way that ensures Reinhardt will pass it straight to Dick, since Thomas knows Reinhardt secretly works for him. The plan works exactly as intended. Reinhardt immediately goes to Dick and repeats everything.
Mrs. Dodge, it's Arthur Reinhardt. May I please speak to the chairman?
Thomas then makes his own move. He pretends to be Zeke Bridges and calls Olaf Anderson. On the call, he warns that there are rumors of a deeper investigation into the power lines and that if it continues, it could disrupt the Gulf industry. Zeke insists that there is no solid evidence yet. Olaf says that the whole issue must be settled quickly. Zeke says he's heading to Washington to deal with the clean air issue and will speak to Dick directly. The next morning, Thomas visits Dick and tells him that the EPA is preparing to launch a new investigation into the power lines. Dick replies that he already knows. Thomas suggests that the only way to stop the investigation is through special contacts. Dick then says they will need to speak with Skeeter, a man who handles such matters. After leaving Dick, Thomas sets his plan in motion. When Dick tries to call Skeeter, Silver Fox's Mrs. Rifkin arrives. Thomas had sent her to distract him. While she keeps Dick busy, Thomas disguises himself as a pest control worker and sneaks into Skeeter's office. He manages to send Skeeter away and stays in his place. When Dick's phone call finally goes through, Thomas pretends to be Skeeter.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Skeeter here.
Over the call, he tells Dick that the EPA investigation is indeed happening, and it is very serious. Later, all the key members gather to discuss the problem. Dick tells Olaf that the matter has gone too far and has even reached the president. They can no longer ignore it. Olaf adds that this is not some small case. This is a business worth 7 figures. By now, everyone believes that the EPA is really preparing to investigate. Loretta and the others help gather all the media and press, using a Clean Air Committee press conference as the stage for Thomas's big plan. When the meeting begins, Thomas stands up and starts speaking about Dick. He publicly thanks him, saying that Dick has done something very brave. He has broken away from businessmen and lobbyists like Olaf Anderson and Terry, and chosen instead to serve the people. Thomas then claims that he has proof of this, saying everything is recorded on tape.
The American people were actually represented in the form of this.
The room immediately erupts in chaos, and the session is paused for 15 minutes. During the break, Thomas and Dick argue in a private room about the supposed recording. At that moment, Olaf bursts in, furious. He accuses Dick of betrayal and warns that if he goes down, Dick will go down too. Their fight escalates, and they begin exposing each other's corruption. Olaf reveals that he gave Dick $300,000 for a voter registration scam, $200,000 for another fake scheme, provided him with a private jet, bought 10,000 copies of his autobiography, and even hired Dick's colorblind wife to decorate a house.
I gave you my condo in Vail. I gave you my corporate jet to fly all over the goddamn... No, I bought 10,000 copies of your boring autobiography. I even had your goddamn colorblind wife to redecorate my Olaf.
One by one, all their dirty dealings are spilled out loud. Finally, Olaf demands to hear the tape. He grabs it and plays it. But instead of evidence, the tape only contains a phone sex advertisement of the same scam Thomas had used at the beginning of the film. Olaf and Dick realize too late that they have been tricked into exposing themselves. After realizing Thomas had tricked them, Dick and Olaf quickly make peace with each other and return to the committee meeting. This time, Dick tries to turn the tables by pulling out a list of all of Thomas's past scams and cons, challenging him to explain.
Arrest for bookmaking, card sharping, con games, mail fraud.
Thomas stands up and admits that every scam on the list is true. He really did all of it. But then he says there is something far worse that Dick has done. At that moment, Thomas plays a videotape on live television. It is the secret recording of Dick and Olaf fighting earlier, where they exposed each other's corruption, bribes, scams, fake deals, and personal favors. The tape was broadcast live on all the news channels. Dick's career is instantly destroyed, and the police arrest him. In the aftermath, Thomas is also forced to leave Congress because of his own history of scams. But he tells Celia that although he can't run cons anymore, He has a new plan. He'll run for president.
I'm gonna run for president.
And here, the movie ends. Eddie Murphy's as Thomas shows us how Congress really works from the inside. The movie exposes the ground reality of the American political system, from citizens having little awareness to politicians playing their own corrupt games. Most importantly, it highlights how the system is called genius, not because it solves problems, but because it keeps them going.